Gosh, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm trying to find the difference between these two photos, but I just can't quite put my finger on it. Wait, I've got it. One came with a playoff spot. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove Southern 500. Y'all rarely disappoint. I remember my first Southern 500, 2021. I didn't leave my seat once, not even to go to the bathroom, which probably means I was dangerously dehydrated, but it also means the on-track action is always thrilling, especially tonight when a final playoff position was on the line. So much happened tonight. We will cover everything. Don't worry, from Martin Truex Jr. to Michael Jordan. But I want to start at the finish. The 16-driver playoff field is set. It came down to two drivers, Briscoe, Busch, battling long winless droughts, both in desperate need of a victory to clinch a spot in the postseason. Chase Briscoe gets his second career Cup Series win, and it could not come at a better time. This win was for the hundreds of employees at Stewart-Haas Racing who, as crew chief Richard Boswell put it on the broadcast, have had to put up with an awful lot of noise this season. Many looking for new jobs. This win was for Chase Briscoe's family, his wife expecting twins soon. This win is for car number 14, Chase Briscoe from Indiana, longtime Tony Stewart fan. It was a dream come true just to get to drive for Tony Stewart, let alone to drive his number 14, the car he won the 2011 Cup Series championship in. To represent that number, the history, the prestige that comes with it, the 14 won't be back next season. Chase Briscoe able to get that car into victory lane one more time. This win is for crown jewels. How important the Southern 500 is for the history of this sport. Chase Briscoe, a young driver relatively speaking, gets it. This win is for so many things, but lastly, it's for Chase Briscoe. Briscoe leaving Ford for Joe Gibbs Racing next season. A lot of folks were scratching their heads earlier this summer when JGR made that announcement. Well, actually, Christopher Bell made the announcement. Briscoe's only Cup win came 2.5 years ago, 94 races ago at Phoenix Raceway? I said it in June, I'll say it again now. Chase Briscoe at Joe Gibbs Racing is going to work. The guy has natural talent and ability mixed with hard work. He's a team player. Folks speak very highly of him. This deal is going to work, especially with Bass Pro Shops on board. Don't worry, the 19 car is in good hands next season. Tonight's victory proved it. Darlington is a driver's track, and Chase Briscoe battled Kyle Larson up front all night long. Some folks who maybe missed the race tonight are going to look at the box score and say, oh, Chase Briscoe, another playoff upset, must have been another Harrison Burton kind of situation or a fluke like Austin Syndicate Gateway. No. If you watched the 4-hour race tonight, you'll know that Chase Briscoe, I don't think, spent a single lap outside of the top 5. Aside from green flag pit cycles, I suppose. Qualified third, ran second much of the night to Larson, made an incredible top to bottom move late, fourth to first on a restart. It stuck. He cleared the 1 and the 5. Holy moly, that's a highlight reel move right there. That's a move we'll be showing our grandkids one day, hopefully. Phenomenal stuff. The pit crew did their job all night long, and in the closing laps, with Kyle Busch, a 2-time Cup champion, hungry for a win of his own on fresher tires. With Busch bearing down on him, Briscoe did not buckle under the pressure. I joked at the beginning, but it looked like that Xfinity Series finish in 2020 when Briscoe also held off a hard-charging Kyle Busch. Both wins extremely emotional for different reasons. Tonight's victory is huge for Chase Briscoe. It's huge for the employees at Stewart-Haas who've continued to grind it out all season long. Stewart-Haas Racing in their final season has a driver, has a car in the playoffs. Good for them. That number 14 team ran a phenomenal race from lap 1 to lap 367. What a performance. Now, I have to be consistent. Last week I was somewhat critical of the win and you're in part of this playoff format. Has Chase Briscoe been one of the 16 fastest drivers, best cars all season long? The answer is no. I think there are still many ways we can celebrate this win without it counting towards the playoffs. But like I said last week, I think a top 30, maybe a top 25 in points rule would do the trick. Because with all due respect to Harrison Burton, Again, he's 34th in points. Chase Briscoe has not had a great year. He's 18th in points, or at least he was coming into tonight. So it's not like Briscoe has been completely out to lunch. Shoot, he scored a top 5 finish at Darlington in the spring. We knew he was capable of this. He's shown us that. Winning you're in can produce some exciting, thrilling moments, but I think there needs to be a cutoff. Again, with all due respect to what Harrison Burton accomplished last week, 34th place cars should not be qualifying for the playoffs. That's just my opinion. Anyway, Chase Briscoe is in. Kyle Busch, who scored his second consecutive second place finish, is out. Boy, the 8 team went on a hell of a run, didn't they? RCR winning at Richmond with Austin Dillon, didn't count towards the playoffs. Then Kyle Busch, 4th at Michigan, 2nd at Daytona, 2nd tonight at Darlington. Genius play to put on fresh tires. Even with only 3 laps on your current set, putting on fresh tires there with 20 laps to go was the only opportunity Kyle Busch had to potentially win this thing. Sure, dirty air got in the way at the end. Darlington's a narrow track, tough to pass. But it's even tougher to pass when you have the inferior car. Chase Briscoe's car was clearly better than Kyle Busch's all night long. The only reason Busch was in the picture late was because of those fresh tires. So Randall Burnett, applause for putting your driver on the offense. Let him be aggressive, put on a show, just came up a little short. But these last few weeks give me hope that this Kyle Busch RCR pairing is still capable of great things, especially going into 2025. Shoot, they could win a race here these final 10. But going into next season for sure, there's plenty to be optimistic about still if you are a Kyle Busch fan. Let's take a look at the 16-driver playoff grid. Kyle Larson is the number 1 seed. He's won the most races so far this year, tied for the most stage wins, 2nd in the regular season standings. That still comes with a fair share of playoff points. Larson ran a great race tonight. I don't know what the final total was. I don't have the box score in front of me, but he led well over 200 laps tonight, swept the stages, just didn't fire off quite as fast as Briscoe and others there down the stretch, but still a strong showing heading into the playoffs. He lost out on the regular season championship, though, by 1 point to Tyler Reddick, who, as you can see, is the 3 seed. This is why the regular season championship is important. It comes with 15 playoff points. Reddick only has 2 wins this year. That's half what Larson has, half the playoff points. Reddick also only has 3 stage wins. Larson has 10, but Reddick winning the regular season championship boosts him up to the 3 seed. Good starting spot for Reddick, but there you can see the 16-driver field. Martin Truex Jr., despite his best efforts, is in. Crashed out on lap 2 tonight, just being goofy. Over-aggressive move early in the race, unfortunately took out Ryan Blaney as well. I hope Martin Truex Jr. can refocus these next 10 weeks. He's about to retire. Mentally, it's like he's already retired. Since the start of June, which is now going back 12 races, Truex has only 2 top 10s and an average finish of 24.8 during that span. It's like he's already checked out. He's already on a lake somewhere. I hope Truex can refocus for 10 more races because he drives for Joe Gibbs Racing. He's a veteran, a past champion himself. He's capable of making a deep run, making some noise. I want to see the best at their best. Truex hasn't been at his best in recent weeks, certainly not tonight. Let's hope he turns things around rather quickly. Anyway, I could go on and on about the 16 drivers who are in. We'll have plenty of time this coming week to discuss, but now let's talk about the few drivers who missed out. We mentioned Kyle Busch already, threw a lot of points away over the summer. Some near misses as well. Atlanta was on the losing end of that 3-wide photo finish, some close calls. What went wrong for Chris Buescher? Buescher was on the losing end of a photo finish himself at Kansas. A couple of inches, the difference between making and missing the playoffs. Go back to Darlington in May. Tyler Reddick wedges the 17 into the fence, costs him a win or at least a top 5 there. Couple of huge moments that loom extremely large now for Chris Buescher. Man, what's disappointing here is RFK Racing took such a huge step forward last season. Buescher winning 3 races, both cars making the playoffs. Now we can definitively say they've taken a step back, and that's disappointing. Sure, Brad finally broke through and got a win in that Darlington race, ironically, but Chris Buescher is winless, and now he's out of the playoffs. RFK has been on this sort of a trajectory since Brad got there, and now they've hit a wall, hit a roadblock, hopefully just temporary, but it's disappointing. You look back, let's just throw this up one more time. Look at the 16 drivers in. There's 1 RFK car. There's 1 2311 car. There's only 1 Trackhouse car. 1 Stewart Haas car, I guess, after tonight. Wood Brothers have 1 car and they're a single car team. Like, there are a lot of, outside of Hendrick and Gibbs and Penske, the 3 usual suspects, there are no dominant, dare I say, second-tier teams. That sounds harsh. That sounds very critical. I don't mean for it to sound that way. But you know what I mean? Like Gibbs, Hendrick, Penske, they're the biggest teams, biggest budgets. They get the best results. Typically, everyone else is sort of scrapping. Last year, RFK was one of those surprise teams. The year before that, I would say it was Trackhouse with Ross Chastain finishing second in the championship. Who's the surprise team this year? I guess it's Tyler Reddick carrying the torch for 2311, but he's the only 2311 car in the playoffs this year. That's a great transition to Bubba Wallace. That Michigan crash a couple weeks ago when they chose tires over track position, got caught up in Kyle Larson's mess, that looms large. His teammate went on to win that race. He got taken out of other races. I think about Loudon where Noah Gragson got him. They were racing on rain tires. Those cost Bubba some crucial points, but ultimately it came down to winning. And Bubba Wallace not able to win a race in the first 26 weeks of the season. 4 seasons in a row now, this team has done the exact same thing. They start out slow. 2021, new team. They missed the playoffs, but started to figure things out, and they won at Talladega in the fall. 2022, start out slow, miss the playoffs. Hey, but win at Kansas in the fall. 2023, start out slow, sneak into the playoffs in the final race, and then make a run. Almost got to the round of 8. And now 2024, they scored top 5 at Daytona, if I recall, but then slow, struggle, went on a streak in the summer, but too little too late, missed the playoffs once again. This team needs to put together a full, complete season. 4 years in, they haven't done it. There was some truth to what Bubba Wallace said after Daytona last week when he said it was unacceptable that one of 2311's cars was competing for a championship while the other was struggling to make the playoffs. He's not wrong. It's a hard conversation to have, but hard conversations need to be had about this number 23 team. Their teammate just won the regular season championship. Tyler Reddick has 10 top 5s this year to Bubba Wallace's 5. Reddick has 17 top 10s to Bubba's 10. Reddick has 400 laps led to Bubba's 80. Like, that large of a gap should not exist. You saw Michael Jordan out there tonight. Bubba Wallace is his guy. I think they've surrounded him with good pieces. Do you ride with Booty Barker, keep working on the pit crew, and hope you put together a full season in year 5? Or do you make some significant changes? Bubba Wallace is not going anywhere, not anytime soon, so you'll have to change the pieces you surround him with. We'll see what 2311 Racing opts to do, but missing the playoffs this year, like RFK, 2311 was on this sort of a trajectory. Bubba missing the playoffs is a roadblock. Hopefully they bounce back strong in year 5 next season. And lastly, one other notable team going home disappointed tonight is Ross Chastain and Trackhouse. Again, Trackhouse has 1 car in. Daniel Suarez won at Atlanta, but Ross Chastain just, it's like he's snake bit. I'm not going to say he's cursed. He's had his fair share of bad luck. So has Chris Buescher, so has Bubba Wallace. But Ross Chastain at Michigan had a top 10 run going, got spun in overtime. He led 33 laps at Texas, but either spun himself or got spun on the last lap. I kind of forget what happened in that incident, what triggered it. Just throwing points away, throwing potential wins even away. Pocono just a few weeks ago, he just spun out all by himself, crashed. Can't do that and expect to make the playoffs with how tight it is around the bubble. Tonight was a bummer, honestly, for Ross. He was never a factor, which was kind of surprising. Trackhouse hasn't had great speed this season by any means. That whole team has work to do, but Ross has been good at Darlington in the past. I hope he'd make some noise, and other than staying out at the very end and dropping like a rock almost immediately, the one made very little noise tonight. So, bummer for Buescher, bummer for Ross Chastain, and a bummer for Bubba Wallace. But not a bummer for Chase Briscoe. Again, one final look at the top finishers right here. Christopher Bell with a very quiet top 5. You saw earlier, he's the 2 seed heading into the playoffs. How about Corey LaJoie with a top 10 finish? Tyler Reddick, shout out to Tyler Reddick with a top 10. Held on to win the regular season championship by 1 point. He earned it, man. Throwing up his guts, all sorts of stomach, bowel issues, it sounded like over the radio all night long. Trying to take his medicine in the car with the gloves and helmet and everything on. Just an absolute disaster. I wouldn't want to be near that car post-race, but he comes home 10th and locks up the regular season championship. No pun intended, but this was a gutsy performance by Tyler Reddick. Can we just pause for a moment and talk about how ridiculous this summer stretch of races has been? I know Austin Dillon's win at Richmond didn't count towards the playoffs, but between Austin Dillon's upset victory, Harrison Burton shocking the world at Daytona, go back a couple months to Austin Cindric at Gateway, Chase Briscoe tonight. I know the word parody has maybe overstayed its welcome. It's not as popular of a word as it once was in the beginning of the next gen era. But my goodness, I get that Harrison Burton's was at Daytona, but these other wins were at intermediate tracks, short tracks. Like Austin Dillon had the best car at Richmond. He earned that victory until overtime shenanigans. Austin Cindric was one of the best cars at Gateway. Chase Briscoe tonight again put together a full 3-stage, 3-course meal. Start to finish, everyone on that team executed flawlessly. He was in Kyle Larson's rear windshield most of the night, in the picture, in position. And it's just ridiculous because I know Briscoe was good at Darlington in the spring. That's why last week I said he was one of the most likely playoff upsets. Potential playoff upsets. But if you look at the last, and I looked this up, since he announced he was moving to Gibbs, that was back in the end of June. It's been 7 races since then. In those 7 races, Chase Briscoe doesn't have a top 10. Not even one. Has an average finish of 22nd. I get that he's good at Darlington, so he should show up here and run 6th, run 7th. We'd all applaud him. Good night. He shouldn't win. He shouldn't go out there and have a top 2 car. What? With all that's at stake, everything on the line, like, how does this keep happening? Cindric, Dillon, Burton, Briscoe, how? Just one of those years. Photo finishes, upset winners, the playoff bubble just keeps getting bursted. It's just one of those years, I suppose. I guess that's why we keep watching every single week. Shout out to NBC. They did a great job covering all of the different scenarios tonight with the points, getting a live Michael Jordan reaction when his driver is under pressure on the playoff cut line. Shout out Dave Burns. That was awesome. Let's put this race on the Groovy Gauge. How's that sound? The Groovy Gauge is powered by electric e-bikes all year long. Head to electricebikes.com to learn more. The first 2 stages tonight were kind of just filler. Kyle Larson dominated. We saw other contenders sort of put themselves in position, like a Chase Briscoe. We saw guys like Bubba Wallace start to fade. Busher, Chastain, not really in the picture. Denny Hamlin and others would toy with, sort of the long run strategy, and we'd sometimes see it work, sometimes it wouldn't. Truex binning it on lap 2 was a hell of a cold open. First 2 stages were all right. They were fine. Nothing to write home about. But stage 3, the drama kicked in. My score for the Cookout Southern 500 is an 85%. Really strong finish, so many storylines, covered well again by NBC. Sellout crowd, looked great on TV. You could feel the energy. At least I could feel the energy here, hundreds and hundreds of miles away. Great show tonight, great racing, and I would argue the most deserving driver won the race at the end of the night, which is a double thumbs up in my book. So 85% for the Southern 500. Let me know if you agree or disagree down in the comment section below. I hope I didn't miss anything big. We will break down the playoff picture later this week. Next 10 races, going to be exciting, but that's all I've got for the regular season finale. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe for more NASCAR content, commentary, news, race reactions, and so much more. And a big thank you to my very generous Patreon supporters. I appreciate y'all bearing with me while I was out of town for a couple of days, but now we are back in town for the next 10 plus weeks. The playoff grind is here. Can't wait. Gonna be fun. I will see you again soon. Have a wonderful rest of your Labor Day weekend.